All right, thank you everybody for being here. Today we have a wonderful guest. My guest Ryan Hamilton, attorney. He's going to be talking about state here today. This is going to be great because I think sometimes estate planning is kind of an underserved topic. Ryan, how you doing,
All
sir?
right, all right, good, good.
Blessing to have you on here. Thank you for taking the time to drop some gems today.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Man, we're going to be talking about some estate planning, some wills, trusts. Get your notebooks out, get your replay ready,
Yeah,
because any questions that you want to, even now or in the comments later, I will follow back up and reply to you, and I will make sure that Ryan follows back with you as well. All right, man, you know me. I like to jump into it right away and ask questions so that people who can't stay for long can really get what they're here to get. So, law, estate planning. I think sometimes people kind of neglect these topics because, sometimes interaction with law can always be kind of seen as negative. But it's time for us to kind of
right,
use the tool, right? A tool for protection, a tool for leverage, and really protection against wealth and people who want to take our wealth and the things that we've taken the time to build for years and years and years, right? So I think estate
right.
planning can be towards the end of life, so it makes people kind of hesitant. So let me ask you this. Why is estate planning more important than people?
I think it's because of just the hidden costs at the end, right? If you don't do anything, you leave a pile of mess, and it's just going to be more costly. If you set up a plan, then it's easier for your heirs to kind of move that forward without having to deal with fighting. I've had several people come into my office and you literally come to blows behind what one person said, mama said, versus what the other one said and what they wanted to do. But if everything's down in writing and the plan is everybody knows about the plan, then we don't have to go through that, and you can save a lot of money, you can save a lot of time, and the biggest thing is right building on the next generation, right? So if we got to you can't tear down the wealth before you transfer it to your kids. So I think that's kind of the biggest reason that you want to go ahead and do it.
I like that answer. Like, yeah, we don't want nobody covered the blows over.
It happens, bro.
Reminds me of the first Knives Out movie. That was all about the older gentleman. Let me ask you this. I just had this thought. I just like almost like an epiphany. It's like I think maybe sometimes we neglect estate planning too because we feel like we don't have any wealth, or some people feel like they don't have any wealth. But do you think by being here right now and even following your YouTube page and listening to these things, it will be inspirational? Like you will aspire to have assets to
Yeah,
protect.
and I think everybody's got something. You know what I mean? You got something. You got something you want to leave and pass on to the next generation. And maybe you don't think it's a lot, and maybe you'll get that inspiration to get more. But I don't think there's a minimum number of amount of money you should have, or a certain amount of houses, or whatever wealth you want to say, oh, that before you start estate planning. That's not for me. That's only for rich people. I think people say that a lot, especially when it comes to trust. Trust is certainly only for rich people. There's no reason, unless you have millions and millions of dollars, you shouldn't do a trust. And I don't think that's true at all. And there's many forms of estate planning. I mean, there's the trust, there's also the will. So there's different ways to go about it. But I think at a bare minimum, you should do something. And I don't think anybody is excluded because they just don't have anything. Everybody's got something.
I like how you I like that. I like that. So yeah, we're gonna get into wills. We're gonna get into trusts, both kinds, and then you're gonna talk about having a plan, like a succession plan, as we get a little deeper into it. So I think that's gonna be great. The next question I want to ask you is, I want to ask you, why do you think people? I kind of touched on this maybe earlier in my own speculation, but why do you think we neglect it? Why do you think we neglect life planning? Because it's at the end of life?
I think so. I mean, you're dealing with death, right? And it's all, even when I kind of make some of these videos and I talk about this, I try to, try to use nicer words to say when they pass away, or it just kind of, because it's kind of, people don't want to deal with their death. It's hard to talk about death, and that's kind of a hard thing, but everybody is going to die, right? So it's something that you need to do. And I think people just kind of also, I think, may think they're going to get to it. Yeah, I'll get to that. I'll
Ooh.
get to that next year. I'll get to it, and then you don't get a chance to do it, and that's especially something with like a power of attorney, right? Because that's very important because if you lose the capacity to actually give someone a power of attorney, now you're kind of stuck in limbo
Mm,
because you haven't passed away. So the will, even if you had a will, that's not effective. And you don't have authority to give somebody else to act on your behalf.
mm.
So now you have to go through this really lengthy process for someone, if they wanted to help you, to actually get you interdicted. And that's a costly process. So that waiting to do things, especially like a power of attorney, it could come back to bite you really.
So you make a really good point there when it comes to power of attorney, and even just now in my next question, um, things that you talk about or that you have in your services that actually apply to life right now, right? Power
Correct.
is something that you're doing just in case, but
Absolutely.
I mean, you need it right now. And I think you also make a good point when it comes to, just thinking about like death. It is the most certain thing. So it is literally the one thing that you can prepare the best to address, right? So it's really super beneficial that at least this one thing will happen, and then you can do it the way you want.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a to be honest, while you're still living, it's not affecting you. So it's like you think about it coming, you could just make that a quick thought and then plan it out the way you want to, so that you can have even like we were talking about life insurance earlier in the week, like last week with my friend Patrick, and he was
Yeah.
the same thing. You want to make sure that you're not the uncle that left everybody with the big funeral bill.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think they go hand in hand. I mean, I can look at estate planning like kind of like a method of insurance. It's the same thing, even like a power of attorney or wills. All of that is you planning and having something in place in case or in certain things when it's going to happen, right?
Sure. And like you said, sooner the better, because tomorrow's never promised to us, man. So you
And
know,
that's another thing, and we can talk about that when we get to talking about trust. I think that the earlier the better. Traditionally, I know people wait till they're older to do trust, but
yeah.
I think the earlier you start, you have a lower switching cost. Because if you've got a young family, I just give you two clients that came to my office. I won't say any names, but one was a young married couple about to have their first baby. They only had one house, and then another guy was. A single guy, and he had maybe 20, 30 houses, but now he's got to figure out how to switch because he's a bit older. He might have been in his 50s or something. He's got to figure out how to switch all those 50 properties
Ooh,
into a trust, as opposed to if you start early,
it's already
it's
there.
already
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I like how you put that. So let me ask you this: are there benefits of certain estate planning tools that actually help you in the present, as opposed to waiting all the way to the end of life? Such as like,
Absolutely. I mean, the estate planning when it comes to a trust, you can get some in life benefits. A power of attorney, you can get some in life benefits.
what is somebody?
Um, so like the power of attorney right now, if you need somebody to go to the bank for you, right, to kind of take a burden off of you, then there's the power of attorney. That's included in estate planning. Um, in life, as far as a trust, there are certain asset protections that if you set them up the correct way, you can get that through a trust to get some type of asset protection, and kind of you can also gain anonymity through not having your name on everything you buy. It'll be in the name of the trust. Now, there is a way to go search that and kind of find, but what you put out in front is not as easy as me just typing in Mark Jackson in the assessor's website and I get a whole list of properties. You know what I mean? So it's easy if you got stuff titled in different names. You kind of even though it may not be the strongest form of asset protection, it's the kind of you can't find it. It's protected because you can't find it.
Oh, so there's still benefits now to even starting now with a lot of these things.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
All right. So let's scale it back a little bit. How did you even get into law and estate planning?
It's a simple answer, man. It's a family business. Yeah, my pops is a lawyer. He was also a real estate broker and an appraiser. And so he was a real estate guy first, and then he went to law school when we were kids. But the intersection of doing a succession comes a lot when you're selling property, right? Because when you go to sell, the parents' house or, grandparents, somebody needs to do a succession. So that intersection between a real estate broker and finding someone, to do this succession to get a judgment of possession so you can get clear title to sell is a close link. So literally the first thing I think when I got out of law school, I think the first thing I did was a will. Like literally the first actual service book was a will. And that was in 2010.
Yeah, man. I can check you out.
Yeah.
So actually this, do you think, because this is the kind of approach that I took, do you think it's best to like just let your attorney know and just like wholeheartedly like trust them to absolutely give you the best advice, or kind of try and understand some of this stuff a little bit and then find a trusted attorney to do the action for you and explain it to you, but you're somewhat knowledgeable?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to get knowledgeable about it, right? So that's that if you have some type of knowledge, you can know whether or not you've got a good attorney and if they're giving you good advice. And you still need to, if you're going to find a good attorney and trust them, I mean, maybe they'll tell you something different than you learned, but at least you're not coming with a blank slate. Like you have some type of knowledge about what you want, how you want to do it, and then you need to get the attorney that'll tell you, okay, how does what you want fit into what will be legal and what will be enforceable? So
yeah, because I think that's the best approach too. Like over time, I got to the point where I actually really enjoyed legal matters, but I didn't have the desire to go all the way and become a lawyer. I had other interests as far as like being an author and things like that. But I'm really, really always very intrigued by topics of law. That's why I can even have great conversations like this with you, because it very much interests me. But
right.
I seek the services of somebody like yourself, and we had a conversation a couple weeks ago.
Right? Yeah, we talked for a long time about it.
But I'm gonna come get my guidance. But then I'm gonna let the guidance lead me to go get more information. And I think that's really the best way for anybody. And I just wanted to put that out there because they're getting advice from us right now. But still, like, there's a book I have. It's called Law 101. That book is awesome. It's an audio book I listen to.
Okay.
But that I do. Law 101, great book. It kind of breaks down a lot of the things simplistically, in a way I was able to pick up. And I think that like helped me understand a lot of stuff about real estate, but even also just civil versus criminal lawsuits, being sued.
Right.
The way the process worked was a lot more. I even understand more things in the world now. Like when they're talking about what's going on in politics and how certain parts of Congress are suing this part of. I just am able to comprehend what's occurring better, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
All right, so now we're going to try and give you guys a little more knowledge. But again, take some notes, watch the replay, because we're going to dive deep. But that doesn't mean you won't be able to understand it eventually. So I want to ask you to kind of break down certain things for me in the way that you do on your YouTube channel and in your social media that I found extremely helpful, which is why I always share it. I think it's very enlightening the way that you
appreciate that.
Man, you do a great job. So let's start with a will. Kind of just explain to us the purpose of the will, what a will is, and why you shouldn't get one.
Yeah, so a will, I guess, is kind of the most basic form of estate planning tool. It's you leaving a set of instructions to the court on how you want your property to be distributed. If you don't have a will, there's a set way that your property will be distributed. It's typically normally it goes to your descendants, and then a surviving spouse gets certain things. But if you don't want that set rules, then you need to write a will, and that informs the court to say, hey, we're not going to follow that playbook. We're going to follow this playbook, right? And that becomes very important when certain things about appointing an independent administrator. You can do that in the will, and that lowers the cost of a succession later on, because if your administrator or executor is not independent, then the court has to supervise it, right? So anytime the court is supervising, there's fees for that. Every time you want to sell a piece of real estate, you have to advertise, and then you have to come back into court and ask the court for permission to sell it, for what you advertise for. So it makes the process much longer, much more costly, and then you may lose a deal, right? Because someone may be trying to move fast on buying a house, but they hear, I got to go through the succession process, and you might lose a deal like that. So, but if you have an independent administrator, that's something you can do in a will. You can appoint that person independent. That you can basically kind of go through that process without court oversight. You basically don't have to do all those extra steps, and the court doesn't have to oversee the process as much.
And or harassment on all of the people who are your potential heirs. They got to keep, like you said, going.
Yeah, every time you want to sell, like cars, real estate, anything like that, you actually have to file a motion. You have to advertise it in the paper a couple times, then go and file a motion saying, hey, I advertised it for this sale. Can I have permission to sell it? So yeah.
Now what's harder? Taking the step to get a will in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's just ask, how would a person obtain a will? Let's just keep it basic, to be honest.
I mean, you would contact a lawyer to write one up for you, because you can in Louisiana, you can actually handwrite a will yourself and sign it and date it, and it's actually valid. However, that will still needs to be proved at a later date, and you may not know to include appointing someone as an independent executive. So, so there's other little caveats. There's certain things that you may not get it right, but so it's probably best to contact the lawyer and get a will done, and that would
reach out to somebody like you.
Yeah, reach out to somebody like me, and a will would save you the cost of a succession a lot of money, because it wouldn't need that oversight.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I picked up the phone. I was like, I got friends. When I was confused, I was like, hey man, I don't know everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
what I'm learning to accept. Learning to know that I don't know what I don't know.
Man.
You know what I mean? And sometimes that's a hard concept.
That's like my.
But if you don't know, there's no way that you know that you don't even know. So
my catchphrase, man. I'm serious. I put that in my book. I remember the first time I realized that about myself. I thought it was like an epiphany. You know what I mean?
It really is.
Because like you said, the biggest problem with that is you can't look. And just sidebar, when I talk about financial education and stuff, and I have like conversations sometimes, people who actually know a little bit try to like bash on people who are not putting in the effort to learn, right? They're like, man, I won't learn, man. They just don't put in the effort. I'm like, do you remember when somebody put you up on game on this though? Like, you missed that part, right? You've been so long, or you got it in a way that you didn't realize other people get it. Like, say for instance, like you were in the family business, right? A lot of people don't have they could just go ask their dad. They got to hire somebody, right? And really, I was able to ask my dad in real estate, right? Because he was doing real estate, doing appraisals. Like everybody can't do that. So some people don't realize that there are things that they should be doing that they are unaware of that they would do if somebody, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm talking about, things like we're doing right now, because you get this awareness that, I
mean, information is priceless, man. No. Like I always think about that thing with Master P when he said he tried to get in contact with Michael Jackson's lawyer. You ever heard that story?
No.
And the guy was like, man, it's $25,000 to sit down with him in one meeting. But that $25,000 meeting got Master P the greatest record deal that has ever been seen, that he got, to keep 85% of all the sales with the no limit. So it's kind of like, wow, man, $25,000 for one meeting, but that gave him, he didn't know he needed a distribution deal. No, but after he left that meeting, he got that information.
No, man, that's what I'm telling you, man. Like, you are hitting nail on the head. Like, so many times along this journey, I have bought my next step, bought some knowledge, and it's crazy because we do it for college, right? Like we do it for our, we'll go into debt for college. We won't spend like, $50 on a book or, a G on a seminar or something like that, man. Because
and you can write that off. You can't write college off.
Right. You know what I mean? But the thing about it is I don't think people have been given the self-belief that they can act with the knowledge, right? Sometimes the knowledge has to come like with a certificate or like some type of certification so that they can, you know, be able to present it to, you know, their job and stuff, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm talking to a lot of kids in the younger generation, and like, they don't feel like that. They get knowledge, they act on it, man. They learn how to drop ship, they learn how to monetize YouTube.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they knowledge-based acting. But we grew up in a generation of like, you know, diplomas and stuff, you know, which is
Absolutely.
still relevant, but it hinders us in kind of like the economy that we're in right now, where it's like, you're better, you're like, you have double power, have this, and you become a lifelong learner on purpose
Right.
and act on knowledge and buy knowledge. But if you don't, you know, you're always like sitting back like, oh, is that worth it? Is that worth it? Is that worth it? You have like this fearful attitude about buying knowledge. We were never taught really to solve our problems with like more information backed by deliberate action, you
Right.
know? And I think, you know, that's becoming more and more of like what I push. I think you're, you know, you're doing the same of saying like, you know, step forward and do some of these things that you think, like you said, Master P, right? Somebody might ask like, Ryan, what are your fees? How much does it cost for that? It almost is irrelevant, because the little bit you're going to spend in the present
Right.
is going to save hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
In the
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So let's, you know, I could get riled up about that.
Yeah, I know. We both can.
All right. So we're going to switch now to trust. We're going to first, let's just talk about what a trust is, and then you'll make the distinction between revocable and irrevocable.
Okay. So a trust typically is a three-party agreement where the person creating the trust is a settlor, giving assets, property to hold and to manage to a trustee who's going to hold and manage those assets on behalf of a third party who's the beneficiary. That's typically the case. That's the three parties to a trust. When you do a revocable living trust, a lot of times you are all three parties, right? So you are the trustee, you are the settlor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. And the reason you would do a revocable living trust is to avoid doing a succession. It's to avoid going to court and ever having to deal with the court. That's the revocable side, right? And then, so when you talk about a revocable trust, you're not going to get any asset protection. You're not going to get any like estate benefits. Really, the only thing you're going to do is skip probate court with the revocable living trust. On the other hand, the irrevocable living trust is when you put that in there and you can't take it back out. So, and you're not, all three parties aren't the same party anymore. Most of the time you have someone, the settlor is giving it to another trustee who's managing it for someone else, right? So you got actual three distinct parties. The person irrevocably gave it to the trust, and so now you have asset protection for that. Now that can avoid estate taxes. There's all type of different benefits when you talk about doing an irrevocable trust versus a revocable living trust.
The trust is almost like a imaginary box, right?
Yes.
You trust all the stuff you're putting in this box to a person that is your trustee that you trust with the box, and they keep the box until it's time to go to the person you want the benefits of the box to go to.
Right. In a irrevocable trust, you're having that other party, but in the revocable one, you're gonna hold all the box. You know what I mean? You're gonna be the person that's giving, and you're holding the box, and you're the beneficiary, and you'll name successor beneficiaries after that.
And now it's just so no one can like really bother what's in it. You can take it back yourself, like you're saying, the court.
So yeah, like so they really just, I mean, there's so many type of trusts to, like, you know, if we stick on the revocable side, the main purpose of that is to avoid probate court, avoid doing a succession. That's on the revocable side. I couldn't hear you. What you say?
What's probate court?
Probate court or open a succession is when you transfer a dead person's property to their heirs, either the ones they named in the will or the ones that the law says they get, right? Yep. So that's the whole process we were talking about earlier about them supervising whether you can sell a piece of property. That's doing a succession or going to probate court, depending on what state you're in, is what they call it. We call it succession. Everywhere else calls it probate.
Yeah.
But that's the transfer of a deceased person or a dead person's property to, you know, their heirs.
That's when they do it for you. But using trusts
Using a
and like
trust, revocable living trust, you skip that process. You skip having to deal with the court altogether if you properly funded your revocable living trust. So that's another thing to talk about too. Once you establish a revocable living trust, it's worthless unless you title everything you own into the name of that revocable living trust. So I say I create your trust for you, the Mark Jackson Family Trust.
Yes,
if you don't transfer your LLCs and any pieces of real estate you own into that box that we were talking about, then if you pass away, then the trust is no good. So during your lifetime, after you establish that trust, you have to transfer everything you own. That includes your bank accounts, you know, any property you own, cars, all of that needs to be titled. So everything you do would be done in the name of the revocable living trust, right?
I want to add one thing too. Most people don't know you can have more than one.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have
right.
Multiple different.
You could have multiple different trusts. Yeah.
Like put different pieces of property into different LLCs or different trusts. Like we don't just bundle everything all together, like as far as like the company is concerned, but also sometimes, like you said, if you want to do your personal assets, you can. But I just want to make the distinction. Some people might think that a lot of the things we're talking about are like singular.
No, you can have different ones because you would have a different purpose, right? Like, so maybe your main estate stuff you want to put in a revocable living trust, but maybe you want to set up something and say, I really want some asset protection for these things. I don't want them to be in my name. I don't want to be associated with it. So I'm going to transfer this amount of stock or this house or this amount of money into this irrevocable trust in which my children are the beneficiaries of. So that means anybody try to sue me or anything happens to me, it can't touch that because it's over there in that irrevocable box. And when it's irrevocable, that's when you get that asset protection and some of those avoiding a state tax. A lot of things people think about a trust is from the irrevocable side where you get those benefits from that. And that's what happens with an irrevocable trust.
That's a good gem right there, man, where they know that over there you get the asset protection, and in case of a lawsuit, that was something that somebody you made, an asset that you had, but I wanted to go to my kids, I wanted to go somewhere like that.
Yeah, and I moved it, and I'm not the trustee either, so I don't control it.
Yep.
I don't own it anymore. I don't control it, and I don't benefit from it. So you can't sue me for it because it's not mine.
Yep.
And so you got to make that distinction, but that's a hard thing for people to do because you have to give up control of your asset, right, in order to get that protection. So a lot of people aren't going to want to go the irrevocable route. They're probably going to go the revocable route, right, and do a revocable living trust because you still can control and maintain everything you have. Now, you don't get liability protection or asset protection with that, but what you can do is have your trust own LLCs, and that's how you get your liability protection. So you would basically, if you had things you wanted to protect, you would put them in you would open up your LLCs and put your different LLCs in there, and then you would make the owner of those LLCs your revocable living trust. So now you've combined the ability to still control and maneuver your assets, also with the power of skipping, probate court or doing a succession.
Drop that one on them again, brother. That's nice.
One more time. So the irrevocable trust, while it does provide all those benefits that people normally think of about asset protection and not paying estate tax and things like that, you absolutely can't control your asset. So you lose control of your asset when you do that. However, I think the better route for people to do is to do a revocable living trust and have that revocable living trust own your different LLCs and have them separated. That way you combine in the power of limited liability companies having asset protection, and also you're getting the power of skipping probate court of doing a succession because your revocable living trust owns all of those assets, the houses, the LLCs, the cars, and everything like that, the businesses.
That's the gems. That's the gems.
I tried.
That's why I need to follow you on YouTube, man.
Follow me on you, RC Ham Law.
Yes, sir. All right, so that was excellent. All right, so now I want to I'm gonna just read this question out. So please now describe the overall view of how a person could intelligently use these and your services, like to kind of plan out, like what would be kind of like ideal if somebody's coming to you like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing. What is like
I,
your opinion a great way to kind of structure what I need to accomplish?
I think you've got to look at it and decide what you want to do, right? Because that you can go, the way I look at it, you've got about 4 estate planning options, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can, one, do nothing. You could just say, I'm not doing nothing, I don't care. You
Yeah.
know, that's probably not the best route. You know what I'm saying? Or you can do a will, right? And then that way, so the way I look at it versus a will versus a trust, right? A will is a lower cost on the front end and lower work on the front end. The trust is a higher cost on the front end and more work on the front end, but on the back end, you're going to be way cheaper with a trust, you know, in the long run. But basically what you're doing with the trust is you're doing all the work and you're spending all the money kind of on the front end. When you do that will, you still have to go through the probate court. So there's still costs, there's still things that need to be done. Sometimes you have to still do an administration. That means your executor has to like collect money on behalf of the estate. They may have to sell things. They may have to liquidate them. They may have to do different things like that. So that was 1, 2, and 3 basically. And then the last thing, which some people do, is you can just give all your stuff away before you pass away. Some people do it, right? I mean, if you trust your children, you're not worried about anything, you can just do active donations. Here, I transfer my house to my child now, or my children now, or this house to that child, this house to that child, and then all my money I give it to my children right now. If
you're gonna do it, then you might as well really.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people aren't going to do that, but people later in life, I mean, that's what they figure. Say, hey, look, take this house now, and I'll just give you the money now. You just make sure you take care of me. A lot of people aren't going to do that, but I have had clients come in and do that. Like, nope, I don't want to do a will. I don't want to do a trust. I want to give it to them now. I'm right here, right now. I'm giving it to them now. So that's kind of your 4 estate planning options that you could go through.
Well, man, thank you so much. This has been awesome. You got any more gems you want to drop on them before we kind of get off?
Man, I think just the gem would be is to seek the information, right? That's kind of the main thing we talked about today is really know you don't know what you don't know. So like try to go find it, and that's really applicable to everyone.
Yeah. I lost your sound. Okay. Yeah, no. She wants to know your YouTube page again. One of the people in the questions, they want to ask what's your YouTube page again.
It's RC Ham Law. RC Ham Law.
I'll put it in.
It's the same as the Instagram, Facebook, all that. It's the same thing.
Nice. All right, brother. Well, thank you for being here, man. We gotta do this again and dive and get a little more specific, get us some more examples, kind of see like maybe where someone did some bad estate planning in the
yeah. I'd love to do this again. I got a bunch of examples. I can't share people's names, but I can give general ideas of what happened and where it went wrong.
All right, awesome. Like let's circle back in February, and that'd be
sounds
awesome.
Good. Sounds good.
I appreciate you, my brother.
All right, Mark. Appreciate you, man.
Long time, man. I'm just so proud of your growth and your grind, man. I just love to see you just.
Thank you, bro. Miss Davis will be proud of us, man.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Man, she's still teaching.
She's still teaching. Yeah, she's still teaching.
All right, brother.
Yeah. All right, man.
I'm going to collaborate on this, so it'll be on your page, too. So,
all right, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.